our presentation, we've got a talk about tiny and small homes, and it's certainly a growing interest in this area, and we do benefit from both giving you some information about what the development controls are, but we've also got a presentation from a local provider, Adam Bennett Smith, who is the director of Coho Homes, and be able to give you some thoughts and ideas about how to go about tiny and small homes. And a lot of people are making these choices on a whole range of reasons. It might be for economic, it might be for ethical, it might be just wanting some alternative to the mainstream of housing that's coming through. And with that, we're seeing that certainly when there is interest from the consumer, where they're driving this change, there's innovation. And there's some great things coming through in the tiny home field.
KalHoHo is a collection of a couple of like-minded designers and builders. We're based in Byron, and we're really passionate about rethinking the way that the development industry potentially can work. What we found as designers was that designing the building was the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we could innovate in. And just following on from what Vince was talking about with the planning laws and so forth, that we actually realised that affordable housing or the unaffordability of housing is very much a man-made problem. It's not something that actually exists. We can build a house for $500, no problem. We can do it out in the yard, and we can do it tomorrow, but it won't comply. It's not legal, and obviously therein lies one of the key constraints. The tiny house movement has really exploded because it's offered some open space to individuals to be able to be creative in that space and create homes that meet their particular needs. So this one is probably most relevant to the conversation today. This is a project that we finished about 12 months ago called The Collective in Byron. It's 20 tiny homes. And these houses, and they are detached houses, are about 27 square metres each, so they're very, very compact. But as you'll see, they make use of all the available space that we possibly can, and they're in their own tiny allotment. So they don't share any party walls or anything with the other units. So these are the configuration of them. They're loft style. We find that the loft style creates a much larger sense of space as opposed to having a closed-off bedroom and things like that. And again, these are available for rent, but we've really spent a lot of time and energy on the design side to make sure that they're really attractive and places where people want to live. I mean, to give you an idea, it took us 12 months to design this building, and it took us about 6 months to build it. So there was a lot of time and effort went into the design. From a town planning point of view, these were developed under the Affordable Rental Housing SEP, or the State Environmental Planning Policy. If there's one thing I could recommend to any of you here sort of contemplating trying to put something like this together, it's understand the rules yourself. Don't rely on consultants to help you, but it's really, really important that if you're trying to put something like this together, you have to understand the intricacies of the legislation that applies. Otherwise, you'll never find the little pockets of open space that you can potentially innovate in. So it's something that we've had to come to grips with. As designers, we've ended up having to be town planners. We've ended up having to be financiers. We've had to be builders, which we already were, but all of these things collectively, it's really important to know all of the pieces of the puzzle, because ultimately you need to innovate a little bit at every single level. You can't just rely on just the design of the building or just the materials or just the town planning or anything like that. It's got to be across the board. So there's just a few more shots from inside these units. To give you an idea, we've got a waiting list of about 30 people waiting to go into this property, or these units, and we don't have much vacancy at all in there. One thing about this property is it's fairly conventional in its sort of financing model. These are just rental units, that's all that they are. Some of the stuff that we're working on now is not just innovative design and town planning and the urban planning stuff, but getting into how can we innovate more in the financing of projects like this, both for the development finance itself and also being able to get people into affordable home ownership, which I think home ownership builds much more resilient communities, and that's something that we really are working towards. To date, it's been very, very difficult to get projects off the ground, but we're confident that a couple of things that we've got, as we get runs on the board, we get, town planners through here, we get councillors, state members, lots of different people to come through these buildings and actually see what's possible, and most people are really surprised as to what's possible. Storage, really important in these kind of tiny homes. This is another project which is similar. It's coming out of the ground as we speak in Byron. It's just on Ewingsdale Road as you're coming into Byron. These are slightly different to the previous one in that they've got a garage a lockable garage on the lower level that we're actually fitting out so that they can be used as studios and workplaces. So the idea is to create a community of people that are not just connected because they live near each other, but there's potential for collaboration at a work level for those people that are sort of like-minded. Again, these are 3D renders. Some people just look at them and they look pretty real, but they're not. They're 3D. So that one's really exciting. That'll be finished in February. This is a project that unfortunately was just refused by Byron Council for being out of character in Mullumbimby. Yeah, I know it's sort of hard to believe, but Mullumbimby is a heritage precinct. The whole of the centre of Mullumbimby, so all the housing just around the town centre, and the argument by a couple of very passionate residents in there is that anything other than detached homes is out of character. Inadvertently, what they're doing, which I think is very unfortunate, is that they're making the whole precinct so exclusive that you've got houses that are knockdown houses now selling for $900,000 in Mullum. And the people that make Mullum can't afford to live in Mullum anymore. So I think it's a challenge, and look, by no means do we say, oh, we've got all the answers and we're 100% right, but there has to be a compromise to be able to get higher density close to the centre of town, because the alternative is to be creating affordable housing on the outskirts of town, which will end up being urban sprawl, and it's just not good urban design. You want your higher density in the middle of town, walking distance, less reliance on cars, all the things that are really common sense in terms of being able to build sustainable housing, but also resilient and diverse communities. Like, we want our communities to have everyone in them, not just people from Sydney or Melbourne that come up and can spend $900,000 on a house, and that's potentially what Mullum is facing. So I think there's a challenge there for the community to really come to grips with what those the ramifications might be. These are inside the units. These are 50 square metres, so they're huge in terms of our normal projects. Look, again, we were looking to put this together as an affordable home ownership model where we're looking at a deposit loan. So I'll talk about that in a second, because I think from our point of view, I mean, we can show you all kinds of photos. These are all great, buildings that we've done in the past, and look, happy to answer any questions on that. But I really do see the final frontier for us is in the financing, and how do we actually help people get into these homes in an affordable way? Because, like I said, we really do believe that owner-occupiers make the communities more resilient, as opposed to having investors owning properties and then tenants that are coming and going. One of the biggest problems in Byron is not necessarily, I mean, there is a shortage of housing stock, and that's obviously one issue, but security of tenure is just incredible. I mean, people can only get 9-month leases and things like that, then they get kicked out over Christmas, and all of these kind of things that mean that the amount of stories that you hear where people over a 10-year period of time have moved 15 times or something like that, and it only takes one of those transitions to be a bad time in someone's life, and straight away you're in crisis, and straight away then it's a snowballing effect. So the cost to the community of not having affordable housing and secure tenure is enormous, and it's not just the housing that is obviously the cost. So look, I guess that's there's some examples of some of our projects, and happy to answer any questions about those. Like I said, this is something that we're working on at the moment. We haven't done before, and we're really sort of after feedback from people to see if this model might be able to work. What we're trying to do is we're trying to rethink the way that we operate as developers, and rather than either building housing and then renting it to people, or building housing and then selling it to people, is there something in between that can be a better way of getting people into affordable housing? So the idea with this is that it came from the fact that a very simple thing, with interest rates where they are at the moment, it's cheaper to pay a mortgage than it is to rent a property. We just did a home loan at 3.75%. I just can't get over that. And for you, those of you that are a bit older and remember the 80s and where interest rates got to, 3.75%. It's quite extraordinary, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. It may do, but that is where we're at. So the thing is that if an investor requires a 5% return, which is pretty standard, if you like, on a residential investment property, then you straight off the bat you're 1.25% better off to be owning the property. The challenge is that as much as a lot of people have the capacity to borrow or to service a loan, they may not have the deposit, and that's potentially where we can sort of come in, because what we're looking at doing here is lending someone the deposit on an interest-free basis, and then taking an option to buy back the property at some point in time in the future. So as developers, if you like, we're not making a profit, we're investing that profit back into the individuals that are living in the dwellings. So let's say if it's a 10% deposit, we lend the individual a 10% deposit, and then they go to whoever the bank is that they want to go to, and they borrow the balance of the money. Now, if you ever sell the property, that second mortgage becomes repayable, and then we also retain an option to buy back the property at some sort of indexed rate. So, in other words, if the property goes up by a certain amount of value, both us as the original developers and the homeowner both participate in whatever capital growth might exist in that situation. If you never sell the property, nothing happens. So that's I guess a risk that we take is that the property never gets sold, but at the same time it's providing an entry-level home ownership model where people aren't relying on having to raise the deposit. So yeah, look, that's probably enough about KalHoHo. If anyone's got any questions, about tiny homes, just talking about the mobile tiny homes as well that Vince was talking about. We've done a lot of research in that area. We haven't built any prototypes, but we've done a lot of investigation into the laws and so forth that apply to it. One law that I'm not 100% sure on, but would be worth investigating, Vince, is the Local Government Act, I believe, allows for a caravan to be occupied by an owner of the property. Is that? That's correct. So if you do have a parcel of land, you can park a tiny home on that parcel of land. Being able to put more than one caravan or tiny home in a spot requires it to be a caravan park, and the size of a caravan park is enormous, and the social impact is just not particularly acceptable, and also the location would mean that it's always way out of town. because you're talking, you know, multiple hectares, I think, to be able to put it together. It would be really, really cool to be able to put, say, 6 tiny homes or 4 tiny homes or something as infill development, but as has been said, the legislation is just not there. And I know that in the States, a lot of these pocket neighbourhood type tiny home situations are cropping up and working really, really well. But unfortunately, there just isn't a legislative framework, no matter what we define the buildings as, to put that together.
My business, or our business, is KalHoHo. We do a European style product. But before I get into what we do, how we got there, I think following along where Adam's coming, the tiny house movement, it's nothing new. Europe's been doing it for a long, long time. You might have noticed on one of Adam's slides, actually, you had a front-loaded washer in the kitchen. Europe's been doing that for a long time. And it's simply going, we don't need a whole laundry over here, we don't need a whole kitchen, we don't need a whole dining room. We come through the 80s and we had mini McMansions and everything had to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But the cost of living has gotten so expensive now. And for those of you who've been around a lot longer, you've seen the mortgage rates like we were talking about before. When we see mortgage rates at, what was it, 3.75? Since the lowest interest rate in Australia ever was 5%. So 3.75 is incredible. Anything under 5% is, you know, dream stuff. But saying that, the cost of living over the last 10 years has probably gone up. Well, let's see, 10, 12 years ago, $850 was enough a week for 2 adults, 2 kids, a mortgage and a car loan. How much do you think it is now for the same thing? $1,600, $1,550. We need to really rethink about the way we're doing things. And we can see now that our kids, if we've got a house now, we're fortunate, but our kids, how are they going to save up $100,000 for a deposit? How are they going to do it? And whilst interest rates are 3.75%, yeah, their borrowing serviceability is there. They can probably borrow up to $300,000, and the average mortgage now is $350,000. But you wait till those rates go to 8%. It's only 3 years ago. There's a few investors here, you can see they've got a couple of properties, they've been there, they know as soon as that rate goes up, well, I'm looking for another $400 or $500 a week. Crikey, it gets stressful. Been there, done it, got stressful. So, tiny house movement has come about, and things need to be more affordable. Things need to be more cost effective. Things need to be, it's a natural progression the way we're going to go. So you've got to try and find that extra money a week, you've got to try and feed your family, and instead of living on beans and rice, you'd like to eat a little bit of meat occasionally. So the reality is that it's not going to get easier. When the interest rate goes up, you're going to be going, oh gee, that's a bit hard. And people will do away with cigarettes, do away with alcohol, any of the fun stuff. That's the way it's going to go. So it's not all doom and gloom though. You've just got to rethink the way you do things. Rather than having this great big mansion that's cost you $500,000 and paying all this interest back to the bank, you just get something smaller, something more sensible, and live a bit more instead of working all our lives trying to pay off this thing. So that's how the tiny movement seems to have come about and is evolving, and just taking over in Australia and America and other countries, it's huge now. The cabin kits we do anything from the size of a little toilet to a 60 square metre cabin. Yeah, we can do huge big houses and we can do triple story, anything, but coming back to council rules as well and doing things the right way. So okay, to get into where I was going, we'll go into, this is our website. We've got 2 websites. We've got cabinlife.com.au and cabinkit.com.au. There's a, you go and buy an average home. What's an average home cost? 3 coral homes, probably 200,000, 250,000. Be around about a normal, very small home. We didn't want to compete with that market, we didn't want to get into that market. Same with the granny flat market. We really were actually deciding just to stay on cabins or move into granny flats, but we're naturally getting pushed into the granny flat market, and we're doing 60 square metre homes. And the whole idea is when it was going to cost for, say, a house like this. Grandma's place, I'll just put on the bigger screen for you. This is a 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom living area with a veranda out the front. Nothing big, nothing huge. It's 35 square metres of living area and 2 metre deck on the front. That sets up for about 60,000, totally finished with everything done through council, with your engineering, your basics, all that sort of stuff. Now, a normal builder's coming in around about 95, 110, 120,000 for the same kind of thing. So we try to fill that void for people who couldn't afford to get to that next step and go, right, well, this is a more cost-effective way to build. And basically, there's no internal lining, there's no external lining. It's all solid timber. So these are just solid blocks of timber. I should have brought them up, but you can come down to our site out the back there. You'll see our cabin life site, and you'll see the bits of timber there. We'll show you more. These houses pass council. We get through council. We've been through many councils. We've been through Byron Shire, Tweed Shire, Mount Isa Shire Council, Blue Mountains, Orange, Bathurst, and Snowy River Shire Council. So we've got a few through. We had to pass a lot of little things because it's a European product. We got all our cabins from Europe. We had to pass Australian policies. So I'll just find it here. Things like windows. We had to get our windows approved in Australia. We had to get our timber certified that it was acceptable to use in Australian conditions. Now, the timber is Nordic spruce pine. Nordic spruce is a slow-growing timber, grown up in Russia, Northern Europe. It's a pine, it's a softwood, but it's a very tight-grown pine. The knots are very tight, slow-grown. We couldn't get the product in here. We tried everything to get what we wanted in Australia. We tried hardwoods, we tried everything you could think of. The problem is the cost. See, we can do a normal 20 square metre cabin for about 12,000 for the kit. That kit, by the way, the kit I showed you before, was $20,000 for the kit. You can build it yourself, finish it up to lock up for about $30,000. So we tried to get this other timber, nothing was good enough, nothing worked. We had to try and find something that's proved, and this is an 18-year-old cabin made out of the same product. It's a Nordic spruce pine. This is in Germany. This is one of my clients. He's just telling us all about it. He's gone, I will not seal it, I will not finish anything. So he hasn't sealed it, he hasn't painted it, except he's done around the windows and sickens. Yet 18 years on, I said, no way mate, you can't do that here, it's Australia. I said, our heat's different, our moisture's different, we've got all these things to contend with, you must seal your cabin. But here is living proof and this is Germany, so you can see how it's browner up here and grey down here. That grey colour, that's what you'd expect it to turn like. You'd expect it to crack and go grey. And in Australia, we'll definitely do that. But you see how it's gone brown here? That's after 18 years, it's coming back to this brown colour. It's like, what? So that's totally unsealed. So that's 18 years of the same product in Germany. And I'm showing this to show you the durability of the product and what it's about. Now, termites is another thing. Everyone says, I've got termites in my place. Australia's a termite farm. There's one huge termite farm. Anywhere, termites. I don't think there's a place in Australia that doesn't have termites. Maybe when it snows. So we've got post caps. Now these post caps go on top of your timber posts. You can have timber posts or steel posts. These post caps we couldn't get in Australia. They're an old thing actually. I don't know, some of the older farmers would have noticed the post caps we've used them years ago, but can't buy them anymore. So we get them made up. And the idea is that slows the termites down. Termites will still come up through the base, but you use treated pine or treated timber underneath, or your base timber is treated, but the cabin itself is not treated. You don't want to live in a treated environment, you don't want to live in chemicals. So there's another product we can use called boron, which is a natural salt-based product, which the boron company gives you 25 years guarantee on the product when you seal it properly on the cabin. So that gets you around the termite problem. So with KalHoHo, let's get back into it. I'll go for this one. I'm going to use an example. Actually, I'll use this one as an example. Coming back to cost effectiveness, who would like to earn another $200 a week for doing nothing? There's a couple of rich people out there, yeah. All right. So I can't say for doing nothing, because you're going to have to do about 2 weeks' work, right? This cabin here, for example, we use this. There's a couple of those in Short Street in Brunswick Heads. There's one in Ewingsdale. That one's in Mullumbimby. The ones in Brunswick Heads, they rent out for about $300 a week or $280 a week, and that costs about $55,000, $56,000 to set up. I like to say $60,000, so you've got change, and it's just set up really nicely, with nice stuff inside. So now, what did they have to do to get that $200 a week for the rest of their lives? They had to spend a week or 2 weeks sorting out council stuff. Now everyone's, oh, council is so hard, oh, it's so stressful, oh, I just struggle getting through it, it's too much. Trying to save $200 a week for the next year and have $10,000 in your hand, there's a lot of bloody work involved in that. But to sit down and go through a little bit of council stuff, and the council's not there to be a total pain in their ass. That's not really their job. Their job is to make sure that something's built isn't going to fall into the ground, isn't going to get blown away, isn't going to get flooded, all of those things. So, okay, we provide the kit. We don't have licensed builders in every state, because we send these all the way down to Tasmania and up to Mount Isa and out to Coonabarabran. So you try and get a local builder, or you can own a build. If you're that way inclined, a little bit of trade now, so anyone can put these up. It's really, really simple. I'll show you a video in a minute and you go, all right, oh, that's simple. So the idea is you can save as much money as you want when you're putting this up. Like I said, you could put that up for $30,000 if you did it yourself, and anyone with a little bit of trade house can do it themselves. Or you can get somebody else to do it and it'll cost you about $60. So now with the council are going to want a few things. They're going to want, first thing, soil test. And the soil test is just to see how the soil is under the ground where you put in your house, see if it's sand, see if it's mud, see if it's active, see if it's going to move, so that we know what sort of concrete and what sort of footings to put in. So if a cyclone comes through, it's not going to rip that thing and throw it into your neighbour's house and destroy their house. Simple. Bring a soil company, done. Okay, engineering. Well, that's simple. We get onto Rob Ungle Engineering. I'll throw in the spit there. And he'll do the engineering for us. So right, with that soil test, we need that kind of concrete underneath. And it might be a simple AS or M class soil, which you need 500mm deep hole of concrete, or there might be a highly reactive soil we got recently, and the hole had to be this deep. The difference is another $500 in concrete, big deal. Okay, so that's out of the way. Then basics. Basics is a thermal rating. It's all about, is this environment comfortable to live in? Is it set up properly? So if you're living in that house, is it warm enough? Is it cool enough? Do you have a tank attached to it? Have you got, what sort of shower heads and all that sort of thing? It's all about the environment, trying to do this more to see that it's more of an environmental aspect, and this should be here. And basics, you can sit down and do it yourself for $50, real pain in the bum. Just get on to Dave Howard at Partners Engineering, and it's done. So now you've got three things out of the way, straight away, that you can do pretty quickly. So then you've got the council application. Yeah, filling out the forms are a real pain in the bum because they're very generic. But when you understand they're very generic, a lot of the questions, they're not applicable. We don't actually have to answer them. You go, oh, I don't have to answer that. And Tweed Shire Council, I've been out there in Wollongong quite a few times and sat down with Christine Ross and a few of the others. They'll help you out. Here you go. Yeah, no, you need that, you need that, you need that. Okay, so for your $200 a week for the rest of your life, you've now done 3 phone calls and organised those 3 things, and you've now put forward an application. And the only other tricky bit is you're going to have to do a site plan. And I can't draw. I'm just terrible at it. So probably pay somebody to get that. So those 3 things, your soil test is $500, your basics is $400, and your engineering is probably about $600. So spend $1,500. Your application to council will cost you $1,500, and that includes the 4 inspection fees. Then what have I missed? Site plan, so your site plan in there. So about $3,000, and now the only tedious part is you've got to put all this together, and because you're not sure about how to do it, you haven't done it before, or then you ask someone like me or someone like Adam, or go to the council and ask them directly, it's really not hard. And it's worth the time you spend to put that together. So then effectively, the only fun stuff after that is you've got to go out and buy the stuff to put in it. So you might want to, however you want to set it up. Do you want to set up beautiful little vanities and go to IKEA and do it cheap, or however? That's up to you. So you've spent 4 phone calls, maybe a bit of mental stress going on. What do they want? Why do they want that? But you've gotten past that. It took you 2 weeks to get that organised, took however long to get out of council. But what I'm saying is that now you've got that formally approved, and you've gone and got some money and you put this in your backyard, that 2 weeks you spent organising it, which is about all you'll spend, is now going to give you $200 a week for the rest of your life, CPI indexed. So 1 year, 10 grand, 2 years, 20 grand, 3 years, it's a lot of money, and every week. So okay, very simple to do. It's just worth going, if I've got a block of land, if I've got space out the back, can I rent it? That's one way. Alright, so that being said, that's a way to earn extra money. That's a way to help yourselves with the rising cost of living. Another big thing, we got a lot of people coming up for an ageing parent, ageing teenager, not enough room in the house, 2-bedroom house, a simple solution, something that's affordable, they haven't got a lot of money to spend. Then we've got something like this called the Haven Cabin. That doesn't expand, okay, cool. That's what the Haven Cabin looks like when it's first built in the raw. That one's a tubing, and this one's what it looks like when it's painted. Now, they're 20 square metres, they've got a little space in here for a bathroom. Hopefully you can see that all right. Down the bottom there, if I don't stand in front of it, it's better, isn't it? And this cabin sells for about $12,000 for the kit. It's about $4,000 put together, so about $18,000, that's all done, organised for you. So that's a solution for ageing parents and that sort of thing, teenagers. We also have a open plan cabin. Now, this is under 20 square metres. This cabin retails for $9,990, $15,000 is totally finished. Now that brings us back to a whole other side of the council, which is an exempt development. An exempt development is something that's under 20 square metres, under 3 metres high from natural ground level, and it comes into your purpose. So you can legally do it under 20 square metres, but if your purpose is to live in it, to set it up as a livable environment, even have a bedroom in it, it's really not exempt. So anything that you're going to live in, or put a stove, washing machine, that sort of thing in, that's got to go through council. But as an exempt development, a lot of people use these. I had a lady with a disabled son, and he just wanted to get away from mum. And he just goes in there, watches the cricket and football, and then comes back in the house. Some people use it for just a studio, storeroom, somewhere to put stuff. So it's a different range of, we've got smaller cabins, right up to really large cabins. And I better finish up, but I'll just show you one more thing. On our website, you can go down the page here, any cabin page, and that's cabinkit.com.au or cabinlife.com.au, and you click on the Facebook icon here, and it will take you to a lot of YouTubes, and you can see all the latest cabins we've built, and it'll show you how they're built. You'll see actual ones getting built, and you'll be able to do walkthroughs and things when your computer works. But all right, is there any questions?
Do you find they're going much up in communities, like people buying bulk land, like say 10 people going and buying so much land and then building their own separate dwellings on it?
Yes. Do we get a lot of people ringing up saying they want to set up a big parcel of land and put a lot of different dwellings on it? We do have a lot of people that come past us and ask us about that, and farm stays, all that sort of thing. We're working on a farm stay at the moment out of Crystal Creek with the Tweed Shire Council, going through that. There's already multiple occupancy properties. There's already community title properties set up. I think in the future there will be a need for it because affordable housing, let's face it, we don't all have $400 a week or $500 a week to rent a house these days. So I think it's going to be a natural progression that there'll have to be a kind of leasehold set up, and more of a community title set up will probably be popular. Yeah.